Good evening, Charlie Russell for ConcordTV, and we're here with Roger Brooks, and we have a couple other people in a second, but we're here with live election coverage. We're going to be monitoring the results. We're getting them sent up from City Hall, and we'll be able to total them as we go along. And we have a mayoral race. We have 3 running for 2 seats at large, and Dr. Roger Brooks is here. He's going to tell us about the school board races.
Yes, I am Roger Brooks, and I am delighted to be here. Let me say that it feels like old times coming back here to do the results. And for 35 years, I was an elementary school principal here in town, and what we did was follow the election results. You know, we followed 3 cycles of presidential candidates, and our kids would write and interview all the presidential candidates. And we'd show them here on Channel 6. And so it's kind of like old home week coming back. Well, now, to get to the point, the reason that you are probably watching this is not to hear Charlie and me go on all night, but you may have to until we do get the results, because right here, you're going to hear the election results first. And we'll get them to you as soon as possible. We have a number of interesting races going on, and I'll just tell you a little bit about the school board. You know, we have 3 incumbents running, and often it's difficult to be an incumbent. 2 are official incumbents, and the 3rd one is running again. So let me talk about District A, which Tom Croto is the incumbent. He has 2 opponents. Liza Doobie and Danielle Smith. Both of them have run, all 3 of them have run a very active campaign. And I wonder, Charlie, do you think that 2 candidates running against an incumbent are going to split the results or not?
Well, in 30 years, I think it's tough to beat incumbents, and if you're going to beat an incumbent, usually it's one-on-one, but unless the the incumbent has some issues or some issue they're going after, and there haven't been a lot of negatives on Tom, other than maybe he felt the purse was more important than full-day kindergarten last term, but this term certainly it may be different.
Yeah, I think all 3 people that have been on the board or are currently an incumbent showed reservations before on full-day kindergarten. And Rusty Coffran in District C, he lost the last time around, specifically because his opponent was in favor of full-day kindergarten. Barbara Higgins, who's running in District B, Liza Poinier has also run a very active campaign, and you see both their signs all over the district. She's in favor of full-day kindergarten, and now Barbara is as well. Rusty Coffran, who is a former math teacher in town, he was on the board for 3 years, and as I said before, he was more reluctant than probably any of that board to vote for full-day kindergarten. He sees himself as a fiscal hawk, and he's proud of it. And he's running against Chuck Crush, who's has said good things about the district. He's really pleased with the way Broken Ground School embraced his daughter, and how his stepson and stepdaughter, how his stepson has really thrived in the theater program over at here at Concord High School. So we've got lively races, and we look very carefully. Rusty Coffran sees himself as the experienced one, so I alluded to him kind of as an incumbent, but he sees himself that way. So any other thoughts from you, Charlie?
Well, we have a couple other people helping out here tonight. We have Rosemary Lanier and Laurie Kerry, people that have been involved with politics for quite a while, and maybe we can ask them to introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about their thoughts on the race and maybe the voting. You were out there today, so.
Hi, I'm Rosemarie Lanier, and I live in Ward 10. And you know me maybe from prior years of election coverage. It's always fun to come in, and I know for a long time Charlie and Roger have been doing it. I always refer to Charlie as our font of wisdom and statistics on any kind of election over the years. And we always enjoy doing it because I think it's kind of fun to see, you know, that same night that we had the election, who won the races. And with me on this side of the room is Lori Carey. Lori?
Hi. How are you folks this evening? And so glad to be out on election night and the exciting results that are coming in. I sit on the school board on the other side of town in Pennacook at the Merrimack Valley School Board, and I've been there for 12 years. And election nights are always sort of nail-biting nights for everybody, and very much like Charlie has said, when you have several people running in a singular race, it can split the vote. And very often the incumbent comes out on top, but there are always surprises. I know the first time I ever ran for school board, I won by 30 votes. So they can be very close, and you may have a recount. That can be an exciting extension of the election. But certainly, I wouldn't rule anything out tonight.
Yeah, there can be a change on a dime, so to speak, because I remember when I think I used to be, I think it was ward clerk. And this one race one time, I don't know, it was before the, what do you call it, the mail-in ballots were counted.
Right.
One candidate was ahead, and then after counting the mail-in ones, the other candidate won, I think, by 1 vote.
Yes, yeah.
And the person who then lost, I mean, we said, we'll do a recount if you want. He says, no, you know, you can do it. So, you know, I imagine it's always interesting. Like I said, a little nail biting at times for people.
Right. And people make a lot of investment in running too. You know, it's, Charlie mentioned signs all over town. I mean, that's the whole aspect of campaigning. Door to door is the best, meeting people one-on-one. But people do make investments in those yard signs, and those yard signs are not inexpensive. So someone has put a lot of hard work into both getting them out there and printing them and raising the financing to afford them.
I don't know, some people out there will remember Mem Dunn.
Yes.
And decades ago, that was the first campaign I got involved in. And I think the budget we had was $70.
Yes.
You couldn't do that now, you know.
Yeah. No, some of those yard signs are $27 a piece. And so
Wow.
you can imagine it adds up pretty quickly. And then some reason they seem to disappear. I don't know why, but end up in various places you didn't expect. People need to remember that's all part of the political process, getting out there and getting your name out there.
And this is off your election. And unfortunately, I think a lot of people do not come out and vote. I know in Ward 10, as of 11:30 in the morning, it was only about 10% of the people. And I would just like to say, I think every election is important and every position is important.
Oh, I've got to say, one race that I ran, it was so close, there were 9-vote difference. And a colleague of mine, also an incumbent, 2-vote difference. So really, people who say their votes don't count, your votes really do count. And it can make the difference between one person or the other. It can be very close. So I think it's important for people to get out. And you have no reason to complain if you have not voted, really. Now, if you voted, you can complain all you want. But if you haven't, don't do it.
And some of the wards, really, there was no competition. But even then, I think, you know, you can come out and if you like the person, you know who they are, you think they're doing a good job, give them a vote just to let them know. And I think that probably, you know, encourages people to continue.
Right, and very often you will see folks who are campaigning right at the polls. So if you've never met them, go to the polls, meet them. If you have an issue that you want to raise, there's no better time than at the polls to raise that issue, because everybody's ears are tuned to all things politics. So, yeah.
Now, did you two gentlemen over there have competition in your wards for council, or you had the?
Well, let's run them down. We have a mayoral race, Mayor Boulay, Linda Ray Vanfeld, and Roy Swiker. I saw them all on the Monitor did a forum, and the ConcordTV covered it. And the ConcordTV also provided free TV, I think up to 10 minutes for 19 candidates, and I was waking up at 2 in the morning and could stay apprised of what's going on in the race and where people stood. Unopposed, wards 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and 9. Let's see if I can remember. Brent Todd, Al Hirschlag, Jenna Kretovich, Byron Champlin, Linda Kennison, and Candace White-Bouchard are unopposed, so I guess we can call those races barring write-ins. Ward 5, Rob Warner has some competition. He's the incumbent with Sean Riley. They were down there holding signs. As I was coming over here, I stopped at Ward 5. Ward 5 said they had about 700 votes there, which might be about 20, 25%, but they may be the high point. Ward 7, Keith Nyan, five-term incumbent, has Rod Forey, and there were awful lot of signs out there. I think Forey had a lot more signs than Keith did, but I think they went out door to door. Gail Matson up in Ward 8 against Dennis Susi. That's actually a rematch. Last time, I think Dick Patton was in there as well. It was a three-way race, but Gail being the incumbent. Ward 10, St. Hilaire has some competition. David Sky and Elver Zulkic. Mr. Sky, from his profile, said that he was inspired by the Bernie Sanders campaign to get involved. So I was a little bit surprised there weren't more running, but as a kind of a spin-off on that, there were a lot of people that wanted to get involved and do some things, but it is a commitment to run. But so we take off the hats to all the people that are running, and I guess we're about ready to run a video on Ward 1 and see what was going on out in the field today.
I think Tip O'Neill got it right when he said all politics are local, and I think our election here in Concord today is a good example of that. Turnout has been moderate, and that's good. We've got important elections today for mayor and council and school board. You know, a lot of the things we do in Concord have direct impact on the voters in what they're going to pay in property taxes and the quality of life. And I think people realize that in the city of Concord, and always take elections seriously, but especially our municipal elections. Well, I think the biggest issue I hear about is streets, and we lost a tremendous amount of revenue from the state government that used to be put into the roads. They put in some money additionally this year, but I think street pavement and what's happening in the neighborhoods, we know that some of these streets are long overdue for repaving, and that has a tremendous impact on people. That's probably the primary concern. I think the other thing we all worry about is the opioid crisis, and the Concord Police Department and our firefighters do an outstanding job.
Hi, we're back, and the polls have been closed now for almost 15 minutes, and we'll get you those results as soon as they come in. But I want to say a shout out to this station and the Concord Monitor for covering this election. You know, it's difficult to get information unless you know where to look. ConcordTV has been there throughout this campaign, as well as the Concord Monitor. They've put together a forum, a joint forum, and if you show your appreciation, one thing you can do is go onto the Facebook page of ConcordTV and like ConcordTV. It shows that you're kind of giving them a pat on the back for doing a good job of covering this election. Now also, all 19 candidates had YouTubes done, YouTube presentations of about 10 minutes each. And I'm told that over 1,600 views were noted on YouTube. So it shows that you people out there are looking at the candidates, wanting to make an intelligent decision, and we just have to shout out to these two entities for the main thing that you can do to become informed is to watch Concord TV and, of course, the Concord Monitor. Remember, your vote in these local elections is even more important because it's a concentrated vote. You are from a small pool of electors, and you are going to be able to get your information and make your vote count by becoming informed. And so Charlie, I'm just delighted to be a part of this effort. These people have been working for many, many weeks now to make sure that Concord, whether it's 15, 20, or 25% of the electorate shows up, those people that want to be informed are certainly can be informed.
Well, you know, one thing I note is, and I'm a very avid newspaper reader, so 3 and sometimes 4 a day, but not every day. Not many ads in the newspaper for candidates anymore. I mean, it's a video world, it's Facebook, it's other things. But the other thing that comes to mind is, you know, we have staff behind the cameras here and out in the director's room. But the people out there making it happen. I mean, Rosemary Lanier, you served as our award official. I did 1 term. And you know, basically, I'm sure Laurie Kerry's been involved with quite a few elections of being on the ballot or also counting ballots. And you know, the people that are out there at every ward, the day is long. You come in, you have to show an ID now. Even if they know you, they have to verify in case you have a twin or somebody that looks like you with all the integrity of the process issues, false or otherwise, being raised. So we take the hats off to people that make it work. It's a long day, and then the day is over, and then, you know, the counting, you still have to reconcile, you know, Nick Wallner down at my ward with Mike Grafferer and some of the other people that are out there. We take your hats off to the work you do. Ward 2 video is about ready to roll as well.
We are in Ward 2, so some of the people who are voting in Ward 2 are in the Concord School District, some of the people are in the Merrimack Valley School District, so you have to make sure you know what school district you're in to ask for the right ballot to make sure that you can vote for school board if you are in the Concord School District. You know, every voter that I talked to had some comment one way or the other about their tax rates, and these are the elections where the people who are deciding your tax rates are getting voted into office, so that if you are paying attention to how much you're paying in taxes and you want to make sure you understand the reasons why those tax rates exist, then these are the elections for you to be paying attention to.
You want to go first?
Well, I'm going to pick up where Charlie left off on the whole going out to vote. And the laws have changed a lot. It used to be you could just show up at the polls and people knew you're voting in your own neighborhood. And you could walk in and say your name and go vote. Nowadays, of course, the laws have changed a little. There's a little more identification required. You can't go to the polls anymore without your driver's license. Although I got to tell you a story. Just to test that new law. You know, it said photo ID,
Yeah.
right? When the law first came out, there wasn't a lot of specificity to it. I went to the polls with my student ID because I'd gone back to graduate school. And I tried to use that student ID to vote. And it really threw the election officials into a little bit of a panic because was a student ID allowable or wasn't it? And I think that, you know, you learn a lot when you pass legislation in the State House that sometimes you're not as clear as you thought you were when you created the legislation. And that was one piece of legislation, election legislation, that really threw a lot of election officials into a panic. What sort of ID was acceptable? And then a lot of the election clerks were concerned about, do we have to take photographs of people? Do we have to buy camera equipment, you know, to do that? And then what about privacy issues? And so it's, you know, it was complicated for a long time, and it still is. I mean, there's still a lot that people are unsure of.
Because if I'm not mistaken, I think SB 3 was passed. There's
Yes,
a new law.
but not enforced. It's
not enforced yet.
passed, but not enforced. You will
Okay.
be penalized at this point.
Yeah, and that
So,
requires a more complicated system if you go to the polls and you don't have an ID.
Right.
And I don't know if you also have to like bring some like a bill with your
Right.
name on it to say you really live there, which not everybody has bills in their names. you
Right,
know.
right.
And then, well, the thing that upset me about that particular law was that if they follow up and they send a postcard to you or something as a follow-up and you don't respond, they could send the police to your house.
Right.
And many of us found that a little
Right.
shady,
Yeah.
maybe wrong word, but a little
Right.
A little disturbing.
Yeah.
But also with the student ID, as you were saying, there's always discussions like, can university students vote?
Yes.
You know, are they living here? Do you have to quote, you know, what does it mean by residing
Right.
in? And I don't know if they're still discussing that or what here.
Right. Well, supposedly it's a legal form of photo ID, but there's still, I think it's up in the air regarding you're domiciled, and the
Yeah.
law says if you're domiciled in this state, you can vote in this state. And you know, do we really want to make it that complicated for people to vote? I don't know. I think the idea is to encourage people to vote, not to discourage people to vote. But that will be a never-ending topic
Yeah.
of discussion. And just recently, the state has hired their first election investigator,
Oh.
and that's Bud Fitch, who used to work for the New Hampshire School Boards Association. He also worked for Kelly Ayotte. So he now will be working for the Secretary of State's office in the Elections Division, investigating, you know, whether people are
Did he work
legally
with,
voting.
Yeah, did he work with Kelly Ayotte when she was state attorney general, or?
When she ran for the,
Congress.
yes, yeah, exactly, yeah.
Yeah, so, you know, it's an interesting thing. I'm all for encouraging people to get out there and vote.
Right.
And to make it easier, not harder.
Right, right. And I think that now there's a lot of good information. If you're unsure, you can go online, you can go to the Secretary of State's website, and there's all sorts of election information. So never feel you're alone, or you know, if you have any hesitation, there's information out there for you at the Secretary of State's website. And Concord Television has been another good source of information for elections
And you
as
could,
well.
you know, you could see all those interviews we were talking about earlier that Charlie and Roger were. You could see them on TV too.
That's right.
I was up late one night watching them.
Right,
You know,
right.
you get a sense of who people are.
Well, and streaming as well. You know, if
Yeah.
most people use their computers now anyway for just about everything. So, yeah.
And now we're up to Ward 3. We're going to go to Ward 3 video.
We're about, what is it, like 9:30 in the morning already? We've already crossed 125 voters here in Ward 3. Super excited about that. It's important for women, it's important for men, it's important for all people to vote. You know what, Concord? You should be really proud of yourself. For an off election, if we cross over 10% of the votes, that would be amazing.
It's a great day. We hope that everyone who's listening comes out to vote today and show your civic duty in each of your wards today.
I think it's important to vote because that is your first real part to make changes in Concord, for you to have your voice heard and to make a stand for what you believe in.
My father went to a school called the University of Rochester, which was the first school that allowed women into the university because of a great endowment by Susan B. Anthony. We all know that women voting is really important. At 3 years old, my father took me to the polls to teach me how to vote.
I vote in every election, whether it's a presidential election, an on year, an off year, because it's so important to get out and vote. Not all of us have the energy to be able to run for office or serve in office, and so there's another way for us to be able to contribute, and that's voting to make sure that you get to have your voice heard in your community. Municipal elections are the most important elections to vote in, so get out there and vote.
And we have our first results in from Ward 6. For those who have been patiently waiting, Mayor Boulay, 207, Roy Swiker, 41, Linda Banfield, 31. The at-large race, I hadn't mentioned the candidates, but Amanda Grady Sexton, 206, Fred Keach, 143, and George Jack, 40. Linda Kennison, unopposed, 227 votes. Looks like 293 votes were there. And the keynote question, 123 yes and 129 no. And that area is between Pleasant Street and West Street, votes at St. John's Parish Hall. Roger, School Board.
Yeah, just a comment though. One of the things that was difficult was to make sure that you actually voted on the keynote question. And there was a drop-off. There were 293 votes cast, and only 254, if my math is correct, 252 voted on the keynote question. And when I was leaving the booth, I asked my wife, did you see the keynote question? Because she said, yes, I almost left, and then they said, I know there's supposed to be something on keynote, and it was way down at the bottom. So maybe maybe next time we'll have to redesign this. But we do have results in the Board of Education, and this is a close one. Liza Poinier is leading 141 to Barbara Hagan's 128. That would be the first sign that an incumbent may be experiencing difficulty. So Liza Poinier, 141, Barbara Higgins, 128. That's from Ward 6. Does that surprise you?
No, well, been awful lot of signs, and I don't know if Ponier won the sign battle or whatever, but we'll see. That's not Barbara's home ward. That's I think Ponier lives in Ward 7 on Morton Street, so we'll see what the results are in the other wards. But we have our first re-elected, unopposed Ward 4 councilor to be interviewed and take it away over there.
Well, good evening.
Hi, welcome. This is Byron Champlin, and who won his contest, right?
I did, and I'm thankful for that. I would have been extremely concerned otherwise, but we actually had a lot of folks turning up at Ward 4. It was a great day. I would have loved to have seen a 50% turnout. I think we probably had about 11 or 12% turnout. That's my guess, based on the last estimates and the numbers that came out. Yeah.
Yeah,
So Byron, what were the hot issues over in Ward 4?
I think that I'm not sure that there were hot issues. I certainly think that the contested races, we had, of course, the mayor's race, the city council race, and the councilor at large races. Those were the races that were contested, and I think people turned out to vote in those in particular.
I was ward clerk a couple times, way in the past, but nobody really runs against you when you have your name on the ballot for one of those positions. So I always could say I always won every campaign I was in.
Right.
Now, what term will this be coming up?
This will be my third term. Yeah, I'm very grateful, really grateful for the support of the voters in Ward 4. I've really enjoyed being city councilor. I was canvassing this weekend, and I had several people stop me, and as I knocked on their door, and take a few minutes to talk to me about issues that were of concern to them. They largely are neighborhood issues, things like when's the street going to be repaved, or what's the plan for parking, issues like that that really concerned the folks while I was going around.
Yeah, people tend to look, really close at home.
All
as to
politics
what's
is
going
local,
on.
I think some sage once said, and it really is true. But again, I'm grateful to be returned because the city council has really been a pleasure to serve on. In particular, constituent service, which is something I enjoy, has been a lot of fun. Yeah.
Are there any issues coming up for the city?
There are always
general?
issues coming up.
Any major one?
Well, I think the big issue that is right before us is going to be the redevelopment of the Employment Security Building. And I think that there has been, in letters to the editors, some criticism about whether or not the city is going to get back in the sale every penny that it has put into the project. And I think it's important to understand that all that money was a long-term investment in the redevelopment of what the city council identified as a key piece of property for the future of downtown, and to a larger extent, the future of the cities and the city's growth and economic development. That project right now, although we haven't signed the contract, the developer who's interested in it is going to be building 109 units of market rate housing right in the heart of downtown, and that's something that I think everybody downtown realizes is important in order to create people walking around downtown with disposable income to generate that type of economic activity and vibrancy that we've really been working hard to find. So I think that's one of the big projects. The other thing is we've received about $700+ million from the state, I believe, for road improvements. And the allocation of that money will be something that the City Council will be taking up in January as we set our priorities and look at our capital improvement project list to see where that money will be allocated, how it can best serve the people of the city.
Mm-hmm. It's nice that Concord really gets the two groups of people that really want walkable communities, and that's the millennials and the baby boomers. So as people retire, they want a walkable community because they don't want to drive anymore. The millennials never wanted a car to begin with. They like the walkable communities.
Right.
And I remember how skeptical I was at the redevelopment of downtown, because as a business person myself, I'm thinking I'm having the labor pains for every business on Main Street. Oh my gosh, turn up Main Street for that length of time. But in the end, I mean, I go down Main Street every single day, and it is alive, and all ages there, and the buskers there, and the artwork, the public art, and it's just a really beautiful place. And to see people sitting outdoors in front of Bagel Works, in front of the Crazy Goat, and enjoying, the life on Main Street. It's really
Right.
wonderful.
Right,
Yeah.
and there used to be a time when people said that nobody wanted wider sidewalks because who would be sitting outside, having a drink or eating? I'm glad to hear you say that. And I've had other downtown merchants, tell me that they talk to people regularly who have come from away because they've heard about what a great downtown Concord has.
Yes.
And they're spending monies, and these are shops where people are selling premium items.
Yes.
So all of that is really good for the entire city. I think another major project up on the Heights is, of course, the community center.
Yes.
I was driving by there Sunday to see how it was progressing, and I was really pleased to see that, we did very intentionally preserve the cafeteria and the distinctive steeple on the old Dame School, and that's being integrated very nicely into this community center, which will serve the Heights, but also the entire city, and all ages as well.
Right, right. And I think that's the way we have to start thinking. I mean, we always used to think about serving children and youth, but we really need to serve now two groups of people because we're an aging community. We've got to have that other end covered as well.
Right, and the library has opened not opened a branch per se, but they have library hours there where they have books and they have electronic resources and other things, which is, again, reaching up to the Heights community and providing an important service to them.
And I think as we go along too, more that intergenerational interaction, and I don't know if they still have it there at the Heights Center, but I know at one point anyway, there was a senior group, senior citizens, and there was like a preschool, and they interacted with each other, and that's really a cool thing.
I think that's a healthy situation. I've always, people who know me are tired of hearing me say that I never want to be in a retirement community because I want the vibrancy of a mixed community. I want the energy that you receive from interacting with young people. I think that's good all around. And it also, provides that leavening quality that older citizens can provide to younger people, and the mentoring that's important. If there's one thing that I'm pretty committed to, it's mentoring. I have a lot of interaction with our young professional community. I admire them immensely, and I think they're one of our important resources, along with our new American community, who can really be economic engines in this city.
Right, absolutely.
great.
I mean, it's nice that we have that diversity in Concord. For a long time we didn't, and now I look at the Concord Multicultural Festival, where it brings the whole community together to celebrate our diversity.
Yeah.
You gentlemen on the other side of the room have anything you'd like to ask?
When?
I do have one question. I kind of know the answer to it, but for those who don't know, all the things that a city councilor does, it's much more than just sitting behind the dais and saying yes or no. Could you just briefly say kind of the committees and the interests that you're engaged on?
Me?
Yes.
Oh, well, City Council, of course. I am on the Planning Board. I am on the Community Development Advisory Committee, which administers some of the funds that we have available, particularly for low-income individuals who need to improve their houses and for other projects. I'm on the City Economic Development Advisory Council. I chaired the Mayor's Ad Hoc Events Committee this year that really took a look at how we can be a more event-friendly community, whether there are ways that we could streamline the permitting process while still safeguarding our citizens. Let me see, I think that's everything, Roger, but there might be one or two more that have slipped my mind. But you're right, it is a lot, there's a lot to do. There's also an awful lot of preparation that goes into each of our meetings.
Well, Byron, I want to
Oh, I'm on the parking committee, I'm sorry,
Oh.
I forgot, I knew I forgot one.
And you
probably
do
get a
all
lot
this
of
for
comments.
what salary is this?
Well, I make 10 times more than our state representatives.
Oh, right, the big bucks.
Oh, yeah, wow.
$1,000, right?
Right,
Okay.
right.
Well, I want to thank you for coming by and sharing a little bit about your experience and your days and and I want to thank you for your service on the council too, because I think that's important, to have good people on the council. And would you believe we have a video now of Ward 4 coming up?
Oh, terrific, I'd be interested in seeing that.
The Senate bill has added a couple of new requirements that people who don't have documents showing their domicile or their age, identity, naturalization, things like that, they have to fill out another form, and then they have to provide those if they don't have those documents with them today to show us as supervisors of the checklist when we're registering new voters. They have to assert that, and they have to sign an affidavit to that effect. Then they can go ahead and vote anyway, and they have to bring documentation within 10 days to the clerk's office here in Concord.
I know how important it is to vote, and I feel it's a privilege to vote, and it's tremendous freedom to be able to do that in this great country of ours. So as I was putting these signs together, I was thinking of all these things and how proud I am of my daughter. How proud I am of my daughter and the passion she has for education and for children in the community, and I'm very proud to be here supporting her.
You're making a statement when you vote, and you're making a statement as to the importance of the whole electoral process that we have here. It's a statement about democracy. Your vote always counts. Usually your vote isn't the difference between somebody winning or losing, but here in a ward like this where there's not going to be a big turnout, and there are a number of contested seats in various capacities, one or two votes could make a huge difference. So, but it's a symbolic act, but it also can be a very important act in these close races.
We have some more results here from Ward 1, which is the Pennacook section. Mayor Boulay, 211. Roy Swiker, 42. Linda Ray Banfield, 33. At large, Amanda Grady Sexton, 197. Fred Keach, 142. And George Jack, 45. So the mayor and the two incumbents are certainly building up commanding lead. Brent Todd, 233. Votes, and school board. It's a very small portion of Pennacook is in the Concord School District.
Right. As principal of Beaver Meadow, I used to say we're almost in spitting distance of Merrimack Valley District because it's just right on the border. In fact, we would always have to talk to parents that come in and make sure that they were enrolling in the correct school. Because sometimes they were across the street and supposed to be in Merrimack Valley, or indeed they were ours. So we just have small results in school board for Ward 1. I'll read them in the order of who got the most votes. Danielle Smith had 30 votes. Tom Croto, the incumbent, had 23, and Liza Doobie, 11. So small results, probably, we don't know if that's indicative of anything. And the question on Keno, no, one out, 169 to 133 yes on the question of Keno.
That was Ward 3, I think you read.
Oh,
Ward 1.
excuse me.
I'm sorry, I got
you're
you
right,
confused.
You're right.
Yeah.
Ward 1. So Keno won in Ward 1, 127, and to 111. 127 to 111.
And then we have Ward 3, Mayor 305. It's Ward 3, which votes in I think the golf course, I believe, where they vote. 305, Mayor Boulay, Schweiker, 33, Linda Banfield, 24. I think we can confidently say the mayor was reelected, will be reelected. Amanda Grady Sexton, 265, Fred Keach, 195, and George Jack, 59. Again, it looks like the top two, Amanda Grady Sexton and Fred Keach, way ahead in 3 wards, will be reelected. Jennifer Kretovic, 319, unopposed. And what do we got for school board and Keno there?
So for school board, Tom Croto won this. This is his ward. He had 185 votes. Danielle Smith came in second with 120, and Liza Doobie with 42 votes. And as previously reported, Keno did lose in Ward 3, 133 to 169.
So that's actually, I guess, the winner, the noes are ahead at this point. That was, what, a 36 point. The other two were 3 and 16. So touch and go. I thought it might be 55 to 60%, but we'll see. But actually, we're going to go to a Ward 5 video right now.
Things are looking good today. I think it's been really steady in terms of voter turnout, and we hope as many people get out as possible. There's competitive races in many of the districts and a very competitive school board race.
We've been here all morning, and I have to say it's been a nice steady trickle of people coming in to vote. People are getting in and out quickly. There's not a long line, so I encourage everybody to get out, vote. It's really important to be part of the process. That's actually one of the reasons I'm running, is I just feel it's important to participate in local government.
I think it's obviously important to vote, because if you don't, then decisions will be made without your consent. It's important to support the candidates that you think have views that you appreciate, coincide with, and you think would be the best for the city or the town that you live in.
And I think it's important for everyone to go out and vote for what they believe in, because if you want to see some change, there's no better way in doing it than just getting out yourself and supporting the causes that you believe in.
Voting is very important. I mean, in China today, where the president's going to be, they have one-party system. They don't get to vote. You have to join the party, and you have to vote within the party, and it's all controlled. Here in the United States, we make a difference in government, even though some of us get very upset with some things that go on, but without participating in the election, we've given up that right.
I think it's important because in Concord you have representation that really wants to hear from you, and so I think that getting out and meeting the candidates and ensuring that you are using your voice to tell the officials the direction that you think that Concord should be going in. I think it's really important, and candidates listen.
And we have Ward 4 in here, which is votes at the Boys Club, primarily between Center Street and I guess Fosterville. Jim Boulay, 313, Roy Schweiker, 43, Linda Banfield, 30, Amanda Grady Sexton topping the ticket again at 274, Fred Keach, 214, George Jack, 49, Byron Champlin, who we just interviewed, was unopposed, 326, and school board and Keno. What are we doing here?
Well, this is interesting because at school board, we've had a different result just about every time we've looked. And for Ward 4, the winner is Liza Doobie, 141. Tom Croto came in second with 129, and Danielle Smith came in third with 87. So that mixes things up quite a bit.
The real horse race.
For Keno lost 198 to 145. And again, it's interesting, there were 396 votes cast, and it looks like about 53 voters either did not care to vote on Keno or did not see the question way at the bottom of the ballot. So That'll be interesting, especially if it's a very, very close vote. And right now, I think the noes are leading slightly.
Yeah. Ward 7 results here. Jim Boulay, 618. Roy Swiker, 74. Linda Banfield, 62. Amanda Grady Sexton, 514. Fred Keach, 467. George Jack, 95. Rod Forey, 279. And Keith Nyan, 460. So Keith Nyan wins over a strong challenger. And school board.
So Liza Poinier, again, beat Barbara Higgins, 399 to 338. So it's close, but Liza Poinier, again, for the second ward, has won that. Also, on the Keno question, Keno lost substantially here, 358 to 265. And again, there were 779 votes cast, but 150 people, over 150 people, either did not see or did not care to vote on the Keno question. So, we got a horse race in a couple of these. Keno is running ahead at this point, and in that school board race, we don't... Behind, I'm sorry, the noes are winning ahead. Right.
And in the school district, do we have all in on, we're still waiting?
We've got one more ward, I believe.
Yeah, we're waiting for, what do we got, 1, 2, 3, 4, so we're awaiting 3, I believe, aren't we, or do we have 3? But anyway.
We have
all
3,
right.
but 4, 5, and 6.
But anyway, so as you can see, we're shuffling papers here, but we do have somebody that we could, I don't know if we have the results, and we're going to go to another video of Ward
6 and 7.
6 and 7, a joint video here. Thank you.
So what issues brought you out to vote today?
Well, just basically to make sure that the democratic process gets followed through and that the voices will be heard and hopefully the great or the best candidates get voted in and we can keep our good city running the way it should.
I would say definitely full-day kindergarten. So I think it's really important to draw new families to the community, expand our tax base, and just make sure that we're preparing our leaders of tomorrow as best we can.
It's a civic duty. You vote, you complain. I complain a lot, and a lot, and a lot, so you vote. That's the only way things change is if you vote. So get out there and do your duty and vote, people.
All right, so what issues were most important to you as you're voting this November 7th?
Well, I think all issues are important no matter what. And the most important issue is to get out and vote, period. But I think we've had a good mayor. We've got, I'm not really too crazy about the Keno games, so all those are important. And it's good to keep a good, solid government in Concord.
Excellent. And how about yourself?
Well, given that this was my first local election, I think it's just important to go out there and vote, and we'll see who gets to be in the next mayor's chair.
Well, I wanted responsible leadership. I mean, we didn't have a whole list of things we were voting for. We were just voting for people we thought could carry the positions that they did. More importantly, it's just getting out and voting, because if you don't vote, you really should not have the 4th of July as a day off. I mean, why would you want to?
I've always voted ever since I was eligible. I voted first for Franklin Roosevelt.
My goodness, this is an important activity for you then.
Well, that was around 1930, right around there, 31, 32, yeah.
Excellent, excellent. Well, thank you so much for coming out and voting today.
Yeah.
And you have a great day.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much.
Roy Swiker, 44, Linda Banfield, 35, Amanda Grady Sexton, 598, Fred Keach, 446, George Jack, so Boulay, Keach, and Sexton are re-elected. Rob Werner, with a fight from Sean Riley. Rob Werner, 476, Sean Riley, 209, and we'll do Ward 8 as well. Boulay, Mayor Boulay, 252, 70 for Roy Swiker in Ward 8, 39 for Linda Banfield. Sexton, 243, Keach, 191, Jack, 53. Gail Mattson, re-elected in Ward 8, Councilor, 247, Dennis Susi, 112. And what about school board in 5 and 8 and Keno?
So in Ward 5, we have Liza Poinier, 463, to Barbara Higgins, 300. And with all three wards in, it looks like we have a new school board member for District B. My unofficial results show that Liza Poinier got over 1,000 votes to about 766 for Barbara Higgins.
All right, so
In Keno, in Ward 5, Ward 5 went pretty substantially against Keno. That's 521, with only 209 voting in favor of that. So it looks like the noes are having their day in Keno so far. But let's see what happened in Ward 8. In Ward 8, Rusty Coffrin had 175 votes, and Chuck Crush, 129. For Keno, Keno won 153 yeses and 138 noes. So there we have it, tightening up a little bit for the Keno vote.
Well, I'll have that in a second. But let me do Ward 10, and we have a re-elected councilor to interview. Jim Boulay, the mayor, 593, 85 for Swiker, Banfield, 39, 500 for Amanda Grady Sexton, Fred Keach, 380, George Jack, 89, Dan St. Hilaire, incumbent, 432, Ward Councilor, 195, David Sky, Elver Zulkic, 71, and school board, 410.
School board for Ward 10, we have Rusty Coffrin, 289, and Chuck Crush, 391. So that flipped what we had in Ward 8.
Okay, and Keno?
For Keno, for Ward 10, the noes came out ahead, 342 to 277.
And let's go over and have our interview of our newly elected incumbent in Ward 10, Dan St. Hilaire.
Oh, welcome, Dan.
Thank you.
And congratulations.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Now, how many terms is it on city council?
Well, I started out at large, which has a longer term. So I've been there 12 years. I had 2 at-large terms and 2 Ward 10 terms. So this will be my 3rd Ward 10 term.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. And you won by a nice margin, so that must make you feel pretty good.
It does.
That people appreciate really your efforts.
It does. I think it reflects the fact that people feel like the council is doing a good job, that the city's going in the right direction. I think there are certain opinions, especially in my part of the town, about Loudon Road and which way we should have paved it. And I think that was one of the primary issues with one of my opponents. And so I think the people are happy with our direction, and I think you see that in the results for the other council races as well in the other wards.
One of the things that potentially affecting people is the Northern Pass, and I know you've worked with other council members to see if Northern Pass does come through.
Oh, that's Keno.
Like the Berry line.
Oh, that's Keno.
Right. I'm on the Northern Pass Committee because those lines go through many of my, a lot of my ward. So we've been pretty outspoken and actually had our legal counsel show up and argue against the project, or at least argue for burying the lines in those areas. So we're trying to do everything that we can as a council to help make sure that our property tax and our rates stay high, because I do personally feel like if the lines go through many of my neighbors' yards, that the valuation of their property is going to go down. So that's a real concern for us as neighbors and as a city as well. So hopefully we can resolve that issue.
This summer, I took a trip in Quebec province, and in Canada, you have these, massive structures, the lines going through, and I think people have had it for a long time, so they sort of get used to it, regardless of whether it's out in the country, so to speak, or goes through a city. But particularly when you haven't had that kind of structure in your environment, I think it's quite a difference. And
I have to agree. My younger son's playing hockey in Canada, so I'm in Canada now a couple of times a month. And it's funny, as soon as you cross the border, it strikes me at how the terrain is flatter than in New Hampshire. So you don't have quite the same scenery as you do here.
Mhm.
But you're right, because it's so flat, all you see are those power lines and the big towers holding those lines. And I certainly think, as New Hampshire is reliant on the tourist industry, that we don't want to do anything to damage that. And we are a very scenic state, and I'd like to see it stay that way, and especially through Concord. We've done so much in my area to buy conservation land, and we have ponds, beaver ponds, et cetera, and the lines are going to be going right through there, and so that's a concern.
are there, what do you see as, I guess, big issues in the coming years?
Well, I think some of our other projects that we are thinking about doing, a new athletic field at Terrell Park on the other side of the river. I think that'll add value to the city, and we need that. A lot of kids are doing different sports than we used to do when I went to high school. Lacrosse and soccer are very big, and I think doing a turf field there would be important. But, we have to be mindful of the tax rate, and that's one of the issues we are going to be debating. What do we do with some of the property near the center of town, for instance, the farmland? We now have a contract where it's being farmed, but at some point we may not have that. And so what do we do with that as well, and how do we take care of that open space? So those are just two. And then one major issue really is, how do we continue the momentum of downtown? How do we keep younger people here? How do we keep businesses here and interested in other businesses coming in? I think we have to still be more diligent about that, especially about market rate housing downtown.
Mm-hmm. Could you just describe or define market rate housing? Because people hear that term. Maybe not everybody understands what that means.
Well, I think it's probably, the way I would define it, it's kind of like your average rate of housing. It's like, it's not too expensive, it's not underrated, so it's somewhere in the middle there where you would expect, affordable, somewhere where you would expect the market to be able to fill those spaces up. And I think you've seen a lot of private companies buy some property downtown and think about doing market rate housing. Now, to do market rate, that might mean a whole different model, and some of these people are doing studio apartments instead of 2-bedroom apartments. And yes, less space, but the rent is lower and more affordable, and probably more attractive to a young professional that doesn't have a family, or maybe to a retired couple who wants to move downtown and use their car less. I see that as market rate housing.
Okay. Laurie, do you have any?
Well, I wanted to ask, Dan, you talked a little bit about tourism being a driver for the economy, and this is one reason why you might not be in favor of Northern Pass, but how do you feel about the rail trail that's been proposed in Concord?
Oh, big fan. Big fan of the rail trail. Obviously, we're not using those rail lines anymore. Pan Am is going to give them up. So perfect to connect the trail from southern New Hampshire all the way up to the border of Canada. And I know the city's trying to press the state and the private group helping to raise funds to get some funding to redo those trails. And at the very least, where I mentioned the Terrell Park area, to have the walkway that will be there as part of the trail would be a great spot for our residents and other people to enjoy the river. And at some point in the future, it'd be great if we could connect our downtown to the river and do something like Boston has done to make some open space by the water, or the Esplanade, where you have a nice paved path, small, done well to match with the environment, but a place where you could ride your bike along it or jog along it, et cetera, and still be able to get to the downtown area.
Yeah, that's one thing. I think back when I was a kid, I realized it was a long time ago, but you could ride your bike around town, and now there's so much traffic, it is a little more dangerous, although I know the city's made a great effort with the the biking lanes now that are available, but to have that rail trail, I know in just a little segment my kids used to ride on, down to NHTI, how much fun that was. And you felt like your kids were safe doing it. How nice it would be to see everything sort of connected up so kids could take their bikes and ride from one side of the city to the other.
Absolutely, that, and to walk, or disabled folks to be able to use a nice flat level trail, which they may not be able to do in a wooded environment. And so we're mindful of all those citizens who should have access to our waterfront.
That's great. I want to thank you for coming by and
Well, thank you
talking
very
with us
much.
tonight. And again, congratulations.
Thank you very
on your
much. It's been a
re-election.
pleasure. Thank you.
And, we
Looking forward to
appreciate it.
serving another 2 years.
Good.
Thank you.
And right now, we're going to go to the Ward 8 video.
It's been rather slow at this point, but we've had a lot of new people sign up for the registering, and it's been good at that aspect because their insight as far as the candidates who have selected themselves to run, I think it's important that their voice be heard. They can either read the Concord paper or they could go down to City Hall, and they would inform them of where the ward and where they live, which one to attend. I would tell them that their voice is very important and they should reconsider voting. It's extremely important.
Well, you can't complain if you don't vote. I know people come up to me and they complain about a lot of different issues, and I asked them, did you go out and vote? And they said, no, I didn't vote. If you don't get out and vote, you can't complain.
People should have a voice in who's representing them and how the city is being run and how they feel on important issues. And if they can get their counselor to listen, if they contact their counselor, they can get those issues aired and addressed. Everybody's vote matters, and that's part of the process that is so important to our country, is that we have that ability to voice our concerns or our our positions, and if we don't use that vote, then we've lost that opportunity.
Your vote does matter.
So we have our next to last ward here, our Ward 9. We're still awaiting 2, but Mayor Boulay, 266, Roy Swiker, 43, Linda Banfeld, 44. We have another guest in the studio. You see me, there's a fly here I keep swatting at, so he's uninvited, and we don't know if he or she voted today. But Amanda Grady Sexton, 244, 177, and George Jack, 58 in Ward 9. Candace White Bouchard, unopposed, looks like 321. School Board and Keno, what do we got there, Roger?
Well, this completes the school board election. In Ward 9, we've got Rusty Coffrin, 140, and Chuck Crush, 182. And that means that we have a new school board member by 98 votes, Chuck Crush.
Who we have here, and can we shift our cameras over and welcome aboard? Congratulations.
Congratulations, Chuck.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
Straight over there.
Glad
Welcome.
to be here tonight. Thank you.
And congratulations.
Thank you. It's been an interesting journey, an exciting one, and a good journey. And now I'm glad to be warm after being outside all day.
That is this neck of the woods when you're out there campaigning
Absolutely.
or waiting at the polls. It
Comes
can
with
be
the territory.
a little freezing.
So Chuck, I'm on the school board across town at Merrimack Valley, and I've been there for 12 years, and I gotta say, what inspired you to run for school board?
It was really twofold, the reason I decided to run. I have two stepchildren. I have a daughter who is 10 years old, and I have a stepson who's 16, who's a junior at Concord High. My daughter is a 5th grader at Broken Ground. I've seen how the school, and when they were very young, their father passed away, and I've seen the impact that the school system has had on them, each in a very different way, but very individually. And it's been such a profound impact and such a collaborative effort with our school system, with our teachers, with our educators. My daughter has Angelman syndrome, a disability, and she's fully included. Josh is very involved in the drama program that started when he was very young at Beaver Meadow with Clint Close, and it's been life-changing. So that aspect made me want to serve. I have a business background, and I wanted to work hard for that for the citizens of Concord because I love the city of Concord.
I'm so pleased to hear someone running the school board, not with an axe to grind, but with a real story of inspiration and appreciation of what our public schools do for our students.
Absolutely, and our public schools have such an important challenge in very complex times, and we deal with we're facing a lot of issues in New Hampshire and all over our nation. And I really want to work hard to make sure the citizens of Concord have a voice on the school board and have someone with passion and vision and commitment.
Now, is there one particular issue that you really want to get to work on when you get on school board, or any particular committee that you're particularly inspired to serve on?
Yeah, I would say an issue that's important to me certainly is full-day kindergarten. I'm a huge fan, and I've said that from the outset. So that would probably be my first issue. One of the things that I like about Concord, and you asked about a committee, I really like how there's the collaboration between the school board, who's an independent entity, and the city council. So I like that collaboration, and I'd like to be involved in those conversations between the school board and the city council.
I was kind of impressed with some of the things that you wrote or said, like on the ConcordTV, little videos here. But you seem very oriented and aware of the students.
Absolutely.
And the different kinds of needs that different students would have, and I think that's important.
Thank you.
But you also seem to combine it, I figure, if you're directing is it a retirement community
It's
or
an
nursing
assisted
home?
living.
Assisted
It's
living.
Yeah, I've spent 20 years in healthcare administration, leading organizations providing healthcare in various forms to frail elders.
So you understand budgets.
Absolutely, because I've had to do that in a very cost-effective manner. You talked about the different types of students. At the end of the day, and even at the beginning of the day, it's about the kids.
Right.
It's about all types of students. It's about our kids that have disabilities. It's about our gifted kids. It's about our new Americans. It's about our LGBTQ kids. It's about all kids. And so that's what it's about. One of the greatest things that happened to me on this journey is, running for office for me at times was great, and there were other days where I was like, wow, this is kind of a tough day, a challenge. One of the best things that happened to me is I was leaving Millbrook School after meeting with the principal, because I tried to meet with all the principals. And I was leaving, and I saw the developmental preschool, and I saw those students out there. And I thought, that's why I'm doing this.
Right.
Those young kids, this is their future, and I want to work hard for those kids. And also I want to do it in a cost-effective manner, because I sat with an elderly couple who, if their mortgage goes up very much more due to taxes, are going to choose between paying their mortgage and buying their medicine. And I understand that as well.
Right, and those are tough issues.
Yes.
But you've made a very good point. The investment we make in those preschool children, you've advocated for kindergarten.
Right.
Those are investments that give us returns years later, because those young people become members of our community, and they become productive members of our community, self-confident members of our community, and that's what makes Concord such a great place.
That's right, and it has such, a good foundation, has such an impact, as you said, and it's also important for businesses to come in and look at our school system, and that's an important issue for a strong school system.
Educated workforce.
Absolutely,
Yep.
absolutely.
Yep.
So I'm very excited for the future.
Great. I want to, again, congratulate you. And,
Thank you.
We look forward to your service on the board.
Thank you, and I'm sure we'll be here having more conversations, and I look forward to that, and thank Concord TV.
Right. Yeah, thank you. You're welcome. And right now, we're going to the Ward 9 video.
My name is Steve Ludwig. I'm the moderator of Ward 9 in Concord. Turnout is running just about 4%. We have 2,766 registered voters in the ward, and we've had, at this point, 111 voters. This is a city election, not a state election, so the turnout is going to be a little bit low. The problem I see in that is that we need people to step up and have a say in how their community is run. We need to have voter participation so that the city council and others know what their constituents want. It's hard when only 10-15% of the people show up. They're actually controlling the process for the rest of us. It's difficult when people say, I don't know who to vote for, because number one, we can't encourage them to vote one way or the other, obviously. But they need to read a little bit on on their candidates. They need to understand what they are standing for and try to understand their views. If you don't know where to vote, you can always call City Hall, and they will tell you where the wards are for the voting. The city has 10 wards, and depending on which ward you reside in, that is where you would go to vote.
I think it's important for people to get out and vote because there are many issues within the city, and it gives you your opportunity to vote for candidates that might agree with the issues that that concerns you. So I think it's our civic duty to get out and vote. And it's a beautiful day, and I hope everybody does come out to vote today.
Yeah.
And the problem is,
my name's Jay Whitelaw. I'm the moderator here at Ward 10 in Concord. We're running about 60 to 70 voters an hour. We are always hoping that more people come to vote than do. At 60 to 70 an hour, that would give us about 600 to 700 voters. We have 3,450 registered. So that's not a bad percentage for a local race. Oh, I think it's very important for the community to get out and vote. If you don't know where to go to vote, you can contact the city clerk's office by calling them or going to their webpage, sending them an email. You can also look through past versions of the Concord Monitor because they're pretty good about identifying where people go to vote. You could call your local legislator if you know who that person is, but the best resource would be for the city clerk's office.
It's important to get involved because we have a lot of issues that need to be resolved.
It's very important for people to come out and vote today in Concord. There's a lot of projects going on, and I think your voice needs to be heard.
Got some important issues that are going to be facing the citizens of Concord and needs everyone's voice.
It is important that you come down to vote. I mean, every vote counts.
Every vote counts.
And that completes our video journey around all the polls. I went to 2 of them today. In past years, I've gone to 6, 8, or 10 of them, but it was pretty chilly and I had some things to do. But we have Ward 2 results, but we don't have them from a regular sheet. We have them from a statistical summary, and we'll read them, and there's a little asterisk we'll talk about. But 224, Mayor Boulay, 57, Banfield, and Swiker, 54, excuse me. Al Hirschlag, unopposed, 304 votes. At large, Amanda Grady Sexton, 236. Fred Keach, 147, and Jack George, 61. And school district in Keno, we're going to have a little asterisk there, and Roger will explain.
Sure, thank you, Charlie. There were 304 votes cast at City Council, and we have results only for 183 votes cast for school board. So that's the asterisk. And more important than that, I think we have only 54 votes cast in the Keno vote. So there was a big drop-off. I don't know if there was some glitch or if our statistics are correct. But we're going to report what we have, and it's this. In District 2, we have a tie between Mr. Croto and Ms. Smith, 79 votes each. And Liza Doobie has 25 votes. So extrapolating, if these votes are indeed correct, and there was such a big drop-off, we project that Tom Croto is about 100 votes ahead of the rest of the people of the race, and that would mean he's reelected. For Keno, we have 37 yeses and 17 nos. So that means over 150, or about 150 vote drop-off from the school board vote, and about 250 drop-off from the city council vote. So we do question these results, but these are the results that we have. I don't think it's going to change much unless there were substantially more Keno votes that we haven't processed. But right now we have a tie in District 2, 79 to 79, with Croto and Smith tied. That would still leave Tom Croto 100 votes ahead, and that may be an insurmountable vote. Our projection then would be that Tom Croto is reelected with 416 votes, Danielle Smith 316, and Liza Doobie 219. In Keno, we have the noes winning altogether 2,171 to 1,625. So that's what we have for right now.
And of course, the all-important vote in Ward 8 was Gail Mattson, 247, and Dennis Soucy, 112, and we have her right here to be interviewed. Congratulations, Gail.
Yeah, and welcome. This is Gail Mattson, and who just got reelected for her third term.
Thank you very
on the
much.
City Council, I should specify, in case people haven't been following.
Right, and she's just thawing out from being at the polls all day, and
It was raw and cold.
right. What did you hear were the big issues while you were out there campaigning?
Door to door, obviously, people are concerned about their taxes. We have traditionally, in talking with that's been something that I've talked about with the candidate forum as well, is that we've sort of, in my opinion, we're setting the stage. We've done a lot of work with Main Street and trying to do as much redevelopment as possible. And as a result of that, now businesses are starting to be interested in our city. That's real. I'm really hoping that we will start to see some of those benefits pay out, where if we can get the businesses in and some jobs in, we'll start seeing some help on the tax side of it, because they will be paying taxes. One of the issues that we have a major disadvantage in Concord because we have so many tax-exempt properties. As a result of that, we have to be way more efficient than maybe other cities or towns, because we're dealing with, our property-based tax. There's only so many homes, et cetera, that are paying taxes in. As a result of that, you're seeing the stretch of the dollar. But if we can bring in businesses that are bringing in taxes, that will help to bring those taxes down. So that's a bigger issue. I think Northern Pass has been a big issue as well.
And we heard that from Councillor St. Hilaire earlier, that's a big issue for Concord. And it's funny because initially, Concord didn't seem to be a big player in Northern Pass, but they certainly have become.
Right. I think that, I think there's been sort of a misconception to a bit that it wasn't affecting us as much as it really, the actual path as it came through the city. I'm not sure if people were aware that it was coming through the city. It was something that had been brought to my attention actually the first term that I had been elected, and it was, I learned a lot by that piece of information, what was happening and how it was coming through. As a result of that, the council formed a subcommittee. The mayor appointed me as chair, and we did multiple meetings with all stakeholders, Eversource residents and other people who are affected, and we gathered as much information as possible before we gave that that report to the council, asking them to bury it, because we felt that the effects of the aerial project were negative to the city as well as the state as a whole, but it would hurt residents as well as the city. And we continue to fight that fight, asking for it to be buried, and Councillor Bouchard and I will be testifying before the SEC on November 16th relative to Northern Pass and what the residents have told us that they want. So we will see how that goes.
Yeah, when it started, I don't know how many years ago, it seems so far away because it started up north.
Right, and I think that's maybe why it has taken people so long to become aware of how that, how that is unfolding and how it will affect people in an individual basis as well as the city.
Right. It's fascinating to me to watch the sort of the dichotomy between the city of Franklin and the city of Concord. City of Franklin very pro-Northern Pass and pro-Keno. And then the city of Concord, not so pro-Northern Pass and not so pro-Keno as we've seen tonight.
Right.
So it's, yeah.
Well, it's interesting. We put it to the vote to see what the voters feel. On the Northern Pass part, I think, I don't know how the path is transpiring through through Franklin, but it is coming right through our city, and it's coming within feet of many houses, which I believe is, pretty detrimental to people. It seems to be one of those things where, people, if they realize the effect on them, then they start to get more, more involved.
Yes.
And we sometimes forget, that those, I forget how tall they are, but those towers would be extremely tall.
They will.
And I live on the heights, and I think, no, I probably can see it, from my back door.
What do you see as some of the other issues that are hot issues in your ward?
In our ward, always the taxes, but the people that have been talking to me, they're worried about. Oh goodness.
That's okay. It's been a long day.
It's been a very long day. I'm still cold. I think. Services are always a big
Yes.
issue. So, plowing, you may laugh at me, but some of the complaints that I've heard recently have been about the leaves, the leaf pickup, because.
Oh, didn't get their leaves picked up?
Right,
Oh,
well,
yes.
there's timeliness, and the schedule is hard. And sometimes it's compressed. We may have snow. We've had snow in
Yes.
October. So, it's things like that. We try to be as mindful of those as we can be and work with that, so.
Yeah, I think 6 years ago, the leaf pickup didn't really happen.
Didn't
with
happen.
that 22 inches of snow we got.
Right. So.
But they had the rest of the winter, because I think we only had 6 inches
Yes,
the rest of the
exactly.
winter.
I
It's
think.
kind of crazy.
Yeah. No, I think people are looking forward to the community center.
Yes.
I think that people realize that we did listen to them relative to Loudon Road, because that was one of the major issues, recently, I say recently, but we had the federal money for the paving, and then, that was held in abeyance for a while the state had the money before it got dispersed, and then they had said they didn't want the 3-lane restriction, so, we went back to repaving for 4 lanes.
Right. And I can remember when Loudon Road was 2 lanes, and then they made it squeeze into 4 lanes, the same amount of road.
Right.
So I think that's as much as people want. That's,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I want to thank you for coming by
Thank you.
tonight, and I want to thank you, too, for your service on the council. We
Thank
need good people on the council. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
And we're going to go to the other set now.
And we're back.
We are back.
We're back. We have some other guests coming in, but on Ward 2, we haven't got the official sheets that we got on all the other wards, and I guess we don't think that the changes would materially impact. It looks like Tom Croto was re-elected in a 3-way race.
The one interesting thing, pardon me for the
No.
interruption, the Concord Monitor said that they were pretty pleased with the direction that the city was going in. And, all the incumbents pretty much said, we like the direction. Those that were running against them had other views, and I think the biggest criticism was that too much was emphasized on Main Street, too much attention. But the voters have decided, and all the incumbents won. So it looks like the Concord Monitor was correct, that people are happy with the direction that the city is going. If you look at the school board election, however, the Concord Monitor also said they appreciated the direction that the schools were going. But what happened was that we had Rusty Coffran, who had been on the school board. He was defeated today. Barbara Higgins, who was on the school board, she was defeated. And Tom Croto, who we project has won, actually had more negative votes against him than he won by. So if our Ward 2 results hold, it looks like Tom Croto is the projected winner, but there were more votes for the other 2 candidates combined than for Tom Croto. So it shows that, and I think if you look at the election in the school board, the ones that were running weren't running against full-day kindergarten. They were running more strongly in favor of all-day kindergarten. I think all of them were running for a new revitalized Runlet Middle School. And so maybe the emphasis and the energy is going to go towards those two projects more than what the incumbents or the ones that had previously been on the school board, although all three of them now are in favor of full-day kindergarten. It does look like the new energy on the board is for those two projects.
Well, we have another guest. I think you've said it all pretty succinctly there. If there was, it's tough to beat an incumbent when there's two of you trying to take him on, and that was proven in District A. But we have, is it Lisa Poinier? Is that who I see over there? Okay, and we'll go on over and interview the new District B, is it,
Yes,
school board member?
Yes.
So Liza, I'd like to welcome you to the world of school boards.
Thank you, Lori.
Liza
Appreciate
and
it.
I, Rosemary, met many years ago through the Zonta Club and here in Concord. And at that time, your children were very, very little.
Mm-hmm.
And I shared the story of what inspired you to run for school board.
Well, originally, should I look at you or there?
Okay,
hi,
camera. You're on camera.
Thanks for having me. So originally, I was inspired to run for school board because of, as the gentlemen were just saying, the full-day kindergarten issue. I think it is high time that Concord went ahead and got it done as a matter of equality for all of the younger students of Concord.
And I'd just like to say Merrimack Valley, the other end of Concord, beat you to the punch by a couple of years. I'm hoping you get there someday, but...
we will get there.
Yeah.
It's only a matter of time. The people want it, and now a majority of school board members want it. And you know, last year, it's not that the school board didn't want it, it's that they weren't quite ready to pay for it. So I think we'll get it done this year, I hope. And it's very weird to say we'll get it done, but I'm just so happy to be a part of this. It's great.
Right, right. And I think, you know, that whole issue of running on kindergarten really worked in your favor because there's a big movement in Concord to see that happen. A lot of people wanted to see kindergarten, especially since Merrimack Valley had kindergarten and people began moving to Pennacook so their kids could go to kindergarten, you know.
Right. Right, although I should say that it was definitely not the only reason
Yes.
to be in the race, and there are a lot of other school board issues that interest me, and I think the schools in general, you know, maintaining a strong school district is really important for the city at large, not just for the students, but for the families and for the future adults that we're going to have. A great school system increases property values, it makes people want to come here, as you said. And maybe we won't lose any more people to other communities that do have full-day kindergarten. So that is a part of the puzzle. But you know, lots of exciting stuff coming up, particularly the middle school rehab/rebuild. It's going to be a very exciting time.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah, and I know we often, when we talk about schools, we talk about the students, but I think we're fortunate to have many, you know, great teachers and administrators here in Concord.
We definitely are, and I'm looking forward to meeting a lot more of them in the very near future, and you know, supporting what is already a really terrific school system and seeing where we can take it.
Mm-hmm. So any committees you want to hop right on as you join the school board?
Well, you know, I just bumped into Byron Champlin in the hallway and mentioned to him that I think the communications between the school board and the city council are really important. There is a committee that does that function, and so I hope to be involved with that, and I need to explore and see what other opportunities there are, but I'm just want to learn what I can learn, and then when my season starts, I'll jump right in.
Okay, and you understand sometimes this can be a lifetime commitment. I'm just putting it out there for you.
There will be a challenger someday.
How long is a term on the school board?
It is a 3-year term.
3-year.
Yep, yep. And I should say, between questions, that I want to thank Barb Higgins, the incumbent, who you know, has served very well for 6 years, and so just wanted to say thanks to her for serving well, and to all the incumbents and current school board members for doing a good. It's a really hard job.
It is, and you know, you're never going to make everybody happy. You know, you did the best you
Right.
can, you're never going to make it. And hopefully, each new person brings a perspective or a new idea or shakes things up or makes you look at things differently. I know
Yeah.
with Barb, she really made us look at the city of Concord and some of our historic resources and appreciation for what we have in terms of architecture and the
Absolutely.
community and the importance of neighborhoods.
Yes.
So I think each board member does bring a perspective that helps all of us.
For sure.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate your running for school board, and I congratulate you. for
Thank
winning.
you very much.
Look forward
I'm
to seeing you
super
on the board again.
excited, and I just want to say thanks to you, to the voters, again to the current board, and to Barb Higgins. And it's humbling, exciting, and I'm really grateful. So thanks.
Terrific. And now we're going to the other set. Back to Charlie and Roger.
And we'll run down the results here. There will be, doesn't appear there'll be any changes on the city council. The mayor was reelected 3,668 to Schweiker was second at 529, 394. Councilors in wards 1, 2, 3, and 4, Brett Todd, Al Hirschlag, Jennifer Kretovic, and Byron Champlin were unopposed, as was Linda Kennison in Ward 6 and Candace White Bouchard in Ward 9. In contested races, Rob Werner beat Shane Riley 476 to 209 in Ward 5. Keith Nyan beat Rod Forey 460 to 279 in a fairly contested race. A lot of door-to-door campaigning in that race, I'm told. We had Gail Mattson in, who beat Susie 247 to 112. And then we've had Dan St. Hilaire in, who had two opponents, 432 for St. Hilaire, Sky 195 and 71 for Zulkic. And at large, Amanda Grady Sexton topped the ticket at 3,277. Fred Keach second at 2502, and George 629. So basically, we have the same council. We're going to have a few changes on the school board. Maybe you want to talk to that, Roger?
Sure. We've got two new board members. Mr. Crush is going to represent, Chuck Crush is going to represent District C, and Liza Poinier, District B. We are projecting that Tom Croto is the winner in District A. So that wraps it up for the school board. In Keno, we're projecting also that Keno has lost by about 500, a little over 500 votes, 2,171 to 1,625.
So I don't know what Bo is doing Keno, but the nearest restaurant out of town, I think, is that Chinese restaurant down by 89, Ching Lang.
Yi, yes.
Yeah, so if you're a Keno fan, maybe you do that, or you can take a ride up to Franklin. But we have another guest over here. Perhaps we can shift over to that. Hello, Barbara.
Hi, how are you?
Good to see you.
We have Barb Higgins with us, longtime school board member. Used to be my next door neighbor, as a matter of fact.
A while back.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. So
having
Barb, talk a little bit about tonight and about your service on the school board, because you really brought a new perspective in when you came into school board.
Well, here's how I felt at the time, and here's how I feel now. Obviously, I'm very, very disappointed to not be continuing, but I will run again in the fall. And part of me, and this might sound hokey, but part of me hasn't always liked being just voted by a small portion of our city, because such a big part of my heart is in the North End where I grew up,
Right.
which is Ward 4.
Yes.
And, you know, the North End and White's Park. And so next year when I run for the board, I'll be voted for by everybody. So a part of me feels like that better represents who I am. Having said that, I very much wanted to stay on the board and not have my service interrupted. So the competitive athlete in me is, you know,
Right,
like,
right.
you know, where did I slow down? You know, as if this were a race. But having spent the day, the better part of today at Ward 7 with Liza, We spent a lot of time in the cold weather talking to one another,
Yeah.
and she's fantastic. The school board's lucky. She's not me, but she doesn't have to be me. She's Liza, and she's going to bring a brand new set of skills and strengths and ideas to the board that aren't mine, that will be helpful. So in that regard, the board's lucky. I said all through this campaign that we have 7 amazing candidates, and whoever got elected, the board, there's a fly here, the board would be
I'll stay
lucky.
on the wall.
And the board's lucky. We have 3 great people voted onto the board. So I think that we're going to be fine. I will say that what I would have brought to the upcoming year with full-day kindergarten is a very, very keen, specific eye to curriculum and what we're going to use the taxpayers' money for. So I will be very, very pesky and be at a lot of board meetings and really try to stay involved in that process as a citizen. But I'm not involved in the Children's Action Network or whatever that big political thing is.
Right.
And she had a lot of support there. And I'm just still a small town girl,
Right, right.
So, but I'm excited. This is exciting. Change is good, and upheaval is good, and I just think things happen the way sometimes they're supposed to happen.
And you came into the school board and instigated a lot of change.
Right.
That was an exciting time.
Yes,
And
I came in after a tumultuous job loss, if we're not ashamed to talk about that now.
Right.
And so running for the school board for me at the time was sort of a chance for me to say, you're not going to get me down. And then I have always felt like being on the school board is like a graduate level college class. You learn about everything. You learn about finance, and you learn about business, and you learn about construction, and you learn about social work. You learn about all of it. And so it's been tremendous, and I've always tried to be open-minded and assertive on the board and try to speak for people that might not speak for themselves.
Right. And
So-
if you had advice to give to new members of the board, what would that advice be?
My advice to new members on the board would be don't lose who you are, and don't forget what you said you would do. It's very easy to get caught up in the process, and I know for me that I very much wanted to represent people that felt disconnected or disenfranchised, because that's how I felt when I came onto the board. And in every decision we make, in every conversation we have on the board, I always keep in mind my years teaching at Walker School and all those moms and dads that felt like their voices didn't matter. And their voices do matter. And I cannot tell you how many times I picture actual parents of those students all those years ago who felt like, well, I can't read, so who's going to listen to me? Well, I'm listening to you.
Right.
And so I think of those people when we're talking about multi-million-dollar decisions and, teacher contracts and building new furnaces and whatever it is that we're talking about. I really try to keep in mind, how would I explain this to everybody in our community? And so that was me. So whatever Liza made her promises to be, she needs to not forget what she said and hold true to that. And the second piece of advice I would give is that, you can't keep a specific promise. You have to be open as a board member when something comes up. For example, the heating situation. That was a huge surprise for us as a board, and we had to sort of stop and assess the situation and make the decision that was right at the time. I think probably my actions at that budget meeting, if everybody will recall, I sort of held everyone to task and really called everyone to task on not passing kindergarten. And I think that's probably why I'm not a board member now. But that's fine. If that cost me my seat because it was the right thing to do for the taxpayers in Concord, then I'm happy to lose my seat for that. Because on that day, at that time, it was the right thing to do. And I think that as a new board member, you cannot sell yourself for what you think is your agenda or what you think is right. It really isn't about you. It's
Right.
about the taxpayer.
Absolutely.
Well,
Absolutely.
So.
Really want to thank you for coming in, and it's been nice to hear you talk about the winner.
Well, she's
Because this
she's
is the way-
fantastic.
This is the way races should be.
Well, of course they
respect
should.
each other.
Well, I coach athletes, and when I have an athlete that loses and they're bitter about it, I remind them, when you win, you want people to be happy for you.
That's right.
So when you lose, remind yourself, and how do you want people to treat you when you win the race? So go treat the winner the way that you would want to be treated. And so I can go home and be unhappy. But Liza won, and that's exciting for her. And I want her to know that she has my absolute support. And really what's best for the board is for me to support Liza and to offer my whatever help she may want from me or not. But I should be here for her because that's what's best for Concord's kids, is
Thank
for
you.
me to be helpful to her.
Thank you, and we appreciate the time you have spent on the board.
Well, I
and
love
thank you for all you do for the
Yep.
kids.
Well, I love them, and I'll be back. I'll be back.
I hear we have a video of wards 5, 6, and 7, which is District B of the school board.
Things are looking good today. I think it's been really steady in terms of voter turnout, and we hope as many people get out as possible. There's competitive races in many of the districts and a very competitive school board race.
We've been here all morning, and I have to say it's been a nice steady trickle of people coming in to vote. People are getting in and out quickly. There's not a long line, so I encourage everybody to get out, vote. It's really important to be part of the process. That's actually one of the reasons I'm running, is I just feel it's important to participate in local government.
I think it's obviously important to vote, because if you don't, then decisions would be made without your consent. It's important to support the candidates that you think have views that you appreciate, coincide with, and you think would be the best for the city or the town that you live in.
And I think it's important for everyone to go out and vote for what they believe in, because if you want to see some change, there's no better way in doing it than just getting out yourself and supporting the causes that you believe in.
Voting is very important. I mean, in China today, where the president's going to be, they have one-party system. They don't get to vote. You have to join the party, and you have to vote within the party, and it's all controlled. Here in the United States, we make a difference in government, even though some of us get very upset with some things that go on, but without participating in the election, we've given up that right.
I think it's important because in Concord you have representation that really wants to hear from you, and so I think that getting out and meeting the candidates and ensuring that you are using your voice to tell the officials the direction that you think that Concord should be going in. I think it's really important, and candidates listen.
So what issues brought you out to vote today?
Well, just basically to make sure that the democratic process gets followed through, and that the voices will be heard, and hopefully the great or the best candidates get voted in, and we can keep our good city running the way it should.
I would say definitely full-day kindergarten. So I think it's really important to draw new families to the community, expand our tax base, and just make sure that we're preparing our leaders of tomorrow as best we can.
It's a civic duty. You vote, you complain. I complain a lot, and a lot, and a lot, so you vote. That's the only way things change, is if you vote. So get out there and do your duty and vote, people.
All right, so what issues were most important to you as you're voting this November 7th?
Well, I think all issues are important no matter what. And the most important issue is to get out and vote, period. But I think we've had a good mayor. We've got, I'm not really too crazy about the Keno games, so all those are important. And it's good to keep a good, solid government in Concord.
Excellent. And how about yourself?
Well, given that this was my first local election, I think it's just important to go out there and vote, and we'll see who gets to be in the next mayor's chair.
Well, I wanted responsible leadership. I mean, we didn't have a whole list of things we were voting for. We were just voting for people we thought could carry the positions that they did. More importantly, it's just getting out and voting, because if you don't vote, you really should not have the 4th of July as a day off. I mean, why would you want to?
I've always voted ever since I was eligible. I voted first for Franklin Roosevelt.
My goodness. This is an important activity for you then.
That was around 1930, right around there, 31, 32, yeah.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, thank you so much for coming out and voting today.
Yeah.
And you have a great day.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much.
And we're back. You've been watching a video of District B, which is also Board 6, 5, 6, and 7. And before that, we were talking with Barb Higgins, who was defeated tonight in her bid for re-election. And I just want to say thank you to Barbara for her service. And, you know, usually only the winners come and talk to us. And it's refreshing to see that Barbara believes in the process. She's happy with the votes she's taken and is happy with the results, although she would have loved to have been reelected, as she said. But I want to thank her for her service on the board, for her service as a teacher to the school district, but especially for what she did for a lot of young elementary ladies. She would come, when I was principal at Beaver Meadow and before, she would come and talk to all the girls about going out for track. And it was at a time when not a lot of young ladies thought of themselves as athletes. And she brought a new spirit and encouraged them to be competitive and feel good about their performance on the field, off the field. And so for that, I want to say thank you, Barbara. And I'm sure many ladies out there in the audience today are thanking her for her service and for her encouragement way back when she was a lonely voice for women athletes in Concord. So, Charlie, do you have any thoughts?
Well, Barbara was the first person to break the 5-minute mile for a female back in the late 70s, early 80s. She's been a runner and a coach. And all too often we've heard of the thrill of victory and the agony of defeat. But from her words, obviously there's no agony in defeat. We can't all win all the races. And I think I'd like to encourage the people that did run. I had the numbers here for a second, a while. That ran and run again. Barbara certainly said she's going to run again, and others will run again. Others have run 1, 2, 3 times. Roy Swiker's father, Bob Swiker, ran for school board, I believe, 8 times. The 7th time he tied,
yes,
and he flipped the coin and he lost, as fate may have it. And he won on his 8th time, and he was kind of a lonely vote up there. He had some different viewpoints, but Laurie Carey has experienced the thrill of victory, and I think she's also experienced the defeat. I don't know if it was agony. Maybe you could tell us your many electoral positions. I know you lost at least one race for the legislature.
Yeah, it's you win some and you lose some. It's part of the process, and like Barb, you celebrate the people who win, and you say to yourself, well, next time I'll run harder and I'll do better. And part of it's getting the message out, and messaging is a big issue. Yeah, I've run for different elected offices at the state level, at the local level. It's when you're a public servant, I think your passion is about serving the public. It's not about so much winning or losing. It's about serving the public, and you find your niche. And for me, my niche has always been school board. That's a consistent win for me. It's a little harder with the state races because you're running in multiple towns and multiple districts. So that's a little harder. But I think one thing that we heard from Barbara, you're still there. So whether you win or you lose, you can still be a voice in the process.
Yeah, it was really, like I told her, it was really great to hear that kind of attitude. Because so much in, well, particularly politics these days, people are attacking each other rather than looking at the people they're supposed to serve and what the other person can bring to it.
Right.
And that's very important.
You support the process. You don't question the results. You're a graceful loser, and you do what you can to support the process, because that's the American way. That's what makes the United States of America such a unique place. We give everyone the right to vote. We have free speech, so whether you agree or disagree, you can have those public discussions, and then you support the process, and you take the person who's been elected and you support them in their efforts.
That's great. I do want to mention again, we're, I guess, getting close to our 2-hour time period here, to really thank ConcordTV and for really all the work they do, and sometimes in conjunction with the Concord Monitor. I think we're lucky in this city to have the two forms of media working together and available. And with ConcordTV, you can look at channels 6, 17, or 22. And also they have Facebook, and they're out on YouTube. So it's really a, I think almost from the beginning of ConcordTV, we saw that as a service to try to bring things on the elections to people, to try to interview candidates when possible.
Absolutely.
And that kind of thing.
Some people never get a chance to meet the elected officials who are here, and Concord Television is a great resource for that. It's kind of interesting because you can stream it from wherever you may be in the country. In fact, I said to my daughters, who are not here local anymore, I said, listen, you can stream it live. You know, just get on your computer.
It's seen in different countries too, around the world.
Right. So.
Fascinating world we live in.
That's right.
And if people saw some of us swatting at times, I just want to say, you've heard about, I want to be the fly on the wall.
Right.
That fly didn't hear about that. It had to, you know, travel around, so we apologize for that. But I, you know, hope people have enjoyed meeting some of the candidates, and both those returning to their positions and new people.
Well, in a diverse group too. I mean, I look at certain members of our community, Barb Higgins, Dan St. Hilaire, who have spent their entire lives here. New folks like Chuck Crush and you know, and Liza, and what they bring, and it's an exciting time. I mean, Concord really is in a renaissance, I think, with the development downtown and what's happening on the Heights, and there's so much happening here, so many positive events that are happening, and people getting involved, and a very positive spirit. And I think that's really where Concord shines, is there's that spirit of support and positivity, and you've seen it in the candidates here today.
Yeah, that's great. And I guess if you know, you didn't take notes the way Charlie does over there. In the paper, it'll be in the paper tomorrow morning.
That's right, that's right.
But you heard it here first.
That's right, that's right.
I don't know, you have anything else to say over there?
Can you wrap up, Roger?
Sure. I'd like to. First of all, thank ConcordTV and Concord Monitor for doing this. We have a challenge, you know, in America's democracy, and I think we're doing a small part to keep nonpartisan politics and coverage as you would like it. Because although I'm encouraging you to like us on Facebook, I'm also encouraging you to learn about Facebook, learn about Twitter, learn about all these social media, because we need to be able to control that. You know, in education, we say the first goal is to get the kids' attention. In politics, it's the same way. You got to get the people's attention. And many people say you can only do one thing at a time, and that people's attention can only be on one thing at a time. And so unless we start to control what we learn from social media, we're going to be victims of it, and instead of coming together like we saw today, we're going to be driven further apart. Charlie?
Well, I was thinking, you know, if the product is made overseas, it, you know, it used to say made in Japan years ago and wasn't a very good quality, but if it's made overseas, we have to identify that it was made overseas. And it seems to me that, and I'm not the most erudite about Facebook and all these things, but it seems to me that if you get people buying ads from overseas, there should be some trailer there that basically says, you know, it's been coming from overseas, and that would certainly change things. But anyway, so it's You know, the print media is gone, but the paper is involved in video and Facebook and all the other electronic media. So it's a different world, and you're right, you have to learn about it. Sometimes you're beyond the digital. So we're ready to wrap up here?
I just want to say thank you to the voters.
That's
Yes.
right.
The people that came
That's
out and
right.
voted, and next time drag a neighbor along. It doesn't
Yes,
usually
yeah,
do it.
That's right. It's our most important action we'll ever take is the action of voting. So thank everybody for voting tonight and coming out, and bring a friend next time.
And thank the crew here and the volunteers, and I guess good night.
Good night, thanks for watching.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good evening.